They say the strongest predator is the one you never see coming. In Block D of Iron Gate Penitentiary, power was measured in scars, silence, and blood. For 3 years, Marcus the Reaper Calloway had ruled with an iron fist and a shiv made from stolen steel. No one challenged him. No one dared, until the Pale Man arrived. He didn't speak. He didn't flinch. He just watched, and in that watching, something ancient stirred, something that made the fluorescent lights flicker, made the air taste like copper and ash, made even the guards walk faster past the cell. Marcus saw weakness. The others saw a ghost. But what they were all about to learn was this. Some prisoners are locked away to protect the world from them. Others are locked away to protect them from the world they've left behind. The transport van arrived at 4:47 a.m., under a sky the color of bruised iron. Iron Gate Penitentiary rose in the desert like a monument to forgotten sins. Concrete walls 30 feet high. Razor wire catching the first threads of dawn. Guard towers scanning the emptiness beyond with cold, mechanical eyes. Inside the van, chained to a steel bar, sat a man who looked like he'd been carved from moonlight and shadow. His name, according to the transfer papers, was Adrian Cross. No middle name. No known aliases. Convicted of murder in the first degree. Details sealed. Sentence: life without parole. The file was unusually thin. Almost deliberately so, as if someone had erased more than they'd written. Officer Chun, a veteran with 23 years behind these walls, glanced at the prisoner through the rear-view mirror. Something about him triggered an instinct she'd learned to trust. The same instinct that kept her alive through 4 riots and 2 hostage situations. "You got any family, Cross?" she asked, more to break the silence than from genuine curiosity. Adrian's eyes lifted slowly. They were gray, pale as winter fog, and when they met hers in the mirror, Chin felt her breath catch. It wasn't aggression she saw there. It was depth, centuries of it, oceans of it, a weight that made her feel like she was looking into something that predated the prison, the desert, perhaps even the country itself. "Not anymore," he said quietly. His voice was cultured, measured, with an accent she couldn't quite place. British? Eastern European? It shifted like smoke. The van doors opened with a metallic groan. Morning light spilled across the loading bay, and Adrian stepped out into it with measured grace, his movements economical and precise. He was tall, 6'2", maybe 6'3", but lean in a way that suggested strength rather than starvation. His skin was pale, almost luminous in the harsh fluorescence of the intake area, and his dark hair fell to his shoulders, unkempt but somehow elegant. The other guards exchanged glances. One of them, a younger officer named Torres, actually took a step back. "He ain't that scary," muttered Briggs, the processing officer, though his hand lingered near his baton. "Just another pretty boy who'll learn quick how things work in here." Chin said nothing. She just watched as Adrian was processed. Fingerprints, mugshot, cavity search. The ritual humiliation designed to strip away identity and replace it with a number. Through it all, Adrian remained silent, compliant, his expression neutral. But his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging, assessing, measuring distances and angles with the precision of a predator mapping its territory. By 6:15 a.m., Adrian Cross, now inmate number 847392, was escorted into Block D. Block D was where they kept the violent ones. Murderers, gang leaders, men who'd carved their reputations into other men's flesh. The air here smelled like sweat, industrial cleaner, and something darker, the accumulated rage of 200 souls trapped in a concrete cage. As the door buzzed open and Adrian was led down the main corridor, conversation stopped. Weights clanged to the floor. Card games froze mid-deal. Everyone stared. It wasn't just his appearance, though that was striking enough. It was the way he moved, fluid, unhurried, as if the shackles around his ankles were suggestion rather than restraint. It was the way the temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees when he passed. It was the way the fluorescent lights above him flickered and dimmed, casting his face in shadow. Marcus, the Reaper, Calloway watched from his cell on the second tier, arms crossed over a chest mapped with prison tattoos and old knife scars. He was 42, built like a truck, with knuckles that had broken more faces than he could count. For 3 years, he'd rule Block D through a simple philosophy: hurt anyone who challenged you, hurt them badly, and hurt them publicly. He saw the new fish and smiled slowly. Pale, quiet, pretty, perfect, fresh meat, said Dmitri, one of Marcus's lieutenants, a Russian enforcer with flattened nose and dead eyes. You want him? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He was studying the new prisoner, looking for the tells, the nervous glances, the hunched shoulders, the fear. But Adrian Cross showed none of it. He walked to his cell on the first tier, entered without resistance, and sat on the thin mattress with his back against the wall, hands resting loosely on his knees. And then he closed his eyes, not sleeping, waiting. Yeah, Marcus said finally, his smile widening. I want him. We'll start at lunch. Public. Make sure everyone sees. The cafeteria at noon was organized chaos. 200 men in orange jumpsuits, segregated by gang affiliation, and racial lines that the guards pretended didn't exist. The Aryans held the east side. The Latinos controlled the west. Marcus's crew, a mix of races united by loyalty to him personally, dominated the center, the prime real estate nearest the serving line and farthest from the guard station. Adrian entered with the general population, moving through the serving line with mechanical efficiency. Tray, spork, gray slop that might have been meat or might have been something else entirely. He didn't look at the food. He didn't look at anyone. He chose a seat at an empty table near the back, away from the main congregations, and sat with his back to the wall. The old habits of survival, encoded so deep they become instinct. He'd been in prisons before. Different countries, different centuries. Once in a Prussian fortress where they'd chained him with silver and starved him for decades. Once in a French Bastille where they'd tried to burn him and been horrified when he didn't die. Each time, he'd been betrayed by his own kind, exiled, punished for crimes both real and imagined. This time, it had been Sophia's doing. His own progeny, his own creation, had whispered the right words to the right humans, planted the evidence, orchestrated his fall. A power play. An attempt to take his throne. And it had worked. Now he was here, among humans, forced to suppress his nature, to feed on the rats that scurried through the walls at night, to endure the indignity of sunlight through barred windows that blistered his skin even through his clothes. He was 417 years old. He had commanded armies. He had brought kingdoms to their knees. And now he sat in a prison cafeteria, eating food that tasted like ash, surrounded by mortals who had no idea what sat among them. The shadow fell across his tray before the voice spoke. You're my seat, new fish. Adrian opened his eyes slowly. 5 men surrounded his table. Marcus Calloway stood directly in front of him, flanked by Dmitri and 3 others whose names Adrian didn't know and didn't care to learn. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Even the guards sensed something brewing and positioned themselves for a better view, hands near their radios but not intervening. Not yet. Adrian looked up at Marcus. He saw a man who'd fought his way to the top through brutality and cunning. A man who understood power in the limited way humans did. Through physical dominance, through pain, through fear. A man who had never encountered anything truly powerful. I wasn't aware seats were assigned, Adrian said quietly, his accent making the words sound almost formal. Marcus's smile was all teeth. They ain't, but I'm assigning this one right now. Get up. Around them, the cafeteria held its breath. This was theater, ancient as humanity itself. The alpha asserting dominance. The challenge. The response. Adrian didn't move. Did you hear me, pretty boy? Marcus leaned down, his massive hands flat on the table, his face inches from Adrian's. His breath smelled like coffee and tobacco. I said, get up. Adrian met his eyes. For just a moment, a fraction of a second, he let Marcus see what actually looked back. Not a prisoner. Not a man. Something else. Marcus's smile faltered. Just for an instant. Just the tiniest flicker of uncertainty. Like a candle flame disturbed by a breath of wind from somewhere cold and deep. But then his pride kicked in. The armor every alpha builds to protect the soft places underneath. He couldn't back down. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Last chance, Marcus growled. Adrian slowly, deliberately, took a bite of his food, chewed, swallowed, set down his spork with precise care. "No," he said simply. The word hung in the air like a bell's toll. Marcus grabbed Adrian by the collar and yanked him to his feet, or tried to. Adrian stood, but on his own terms, rising with such fluid grace that it looked like he was doing Marcus a favor. Up close, they were nearly the same height, though Marcus outweighed him by 40 pounds of muscle. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Fish," Marcus snarled. Adrian tilted his head slightly, and for just a moment, something like pity crossed his features. "No," he said softly, so quietly only Marcus could hear. "You did." Marcus threw the first punch, a devastating right hook that had broken jaws and shattered eye sockets. It was fast, brutal, backed by years of violence. Adrian caught it. His hand moved with impossible speed, fingers closing around Marcus's fist mid-flight, stopping it cold. The impact made no sound. There was no struggle. It simply stopped. The cafeteria went absolutely silent. Marcus's eyes widened. He tried to pull his hand back. It didn't move. It was like pulling against a statue, against steel, against something that had no intention of ever moving. Adrian squeezed. Not hard. Just enough. The bones in Marcus's hand creaked. "I don't want trouble," Adrian said quietly, still holding Marcus's fist. "I don't want your territory. I don't want your respect. I want to serve my time in peace." He released Marcus's hand. "Walk away." Marcus stumbled back, cradling his hand, his face twisted between rage and something else, something unfamiliar, fear. Around them, the crowd erupted, not in violence, but in voices shocked, excited, disbelieving. The guards started moving in, radios crackling. But Marcus couldn't let it end there. He'd built his kingdom on never backing down, never showing weakness. If he walked away now, he was finished. He reached behind his back and pulled out a shiv, for inches of sharpened metal taped to a plastic handle, hidden in his waistband where the guards' pat-downs had missed it. "Guards!" someone shouted. But Marcus was already moving, the blade flashing toward Adrian's neck in a kill strike that had ended 3 men before. Adrian moved. One moment he was standing still. The next, he was simply elsewhere, behind Marcus, beside him, the movement too fast for human eyes to properly register. The shiv clattered to the floor, and Adrian's hand was on Marcus's throat, not choking, not squeezing, just holding. He leaned in close, his lips near Marcus's ear, and when he spoke, his voice carried layers a human vocal cords shouldn't produce, harmonics that resonated in bone and blood. "I've killed kings," Adrian whispered. "I've brought down empires. I've walked through history while civilizations rose and fell around me like wheat before the scythe." His fingers tightened slightly. "You're a small man with small power in a small place. Don't make me show you how small." He released Marcus, who collapsed to his knees, gasping. The guards arrived with batons and pepper spray, shouting commands. Adrian immediately raised his hands, stepped back, assumed the position, compliant, controlled. But as they cuffed him and dragged him towards solitary, every inmate in Block D watched with new eyes. They'd seen something impossible, and they all knew, with the certainty of prey recognizing a predator, that the hierarchy of Iron Gate Penitentiary had just been irrevocably shattered. In his cell that night, alone in the darkness, Adrian sat perfectly still, listening to the heartbeats of 200 humans surrounding him, listening to Marcus 3 cells away, his elevated pulse betraying his fear, his mind working through the implications. Adrian had revealed too much. He'd tried to be careful, but the instinct, the old deep instinct, had taken over. Now, they knew he was different. The question was, what would they do about it? He closed his eyes and reached out with senses beyond the 5 the humans possessed, feeling the emotional landscape of the prison like a map of heat signatures. Fear, confusion, aggression, curiosity, and somewhere in the administrative wing, a phone call being made. Words like unusual strength and possible PCP and recommend transfer. But there was something else, too. Something that made Adrian's ancient blood run cold. A presence. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Another vampire. Here, in the prison. Not a prisoner. Something else. Sophia hadn't just gotten him imprisoned. She arranged for him to be watched, guarded, kept here, which meant this wasn't just exile. This was a cage. And something was coming. Adrian opened his eyes in the darkness, and they reflected red, just for a moment, like a wolf caught in headlights. The game had begun. Solitary confinement at Iron Gate was a 6x8 concrete box with a steel door, a toilet without a seat, and a fluorescent bulb that never turned off. 23 hours of isolation, 1 hour in a cage for exercise. No windows, no human contact except the slot in the door where meals appeared 3 times a day. For most men, 3 days in the hole broke something fundamental. A week rewired their psychology. A month created permanent damage. Adrian had been here 72 hours and felt nothing but relief. The silence was a luxury. The isolation, a gift. For the first time since his incarceration, he could drop the mask of humanity and simply exist as what he was, a creature that had learned to mimic life while being fundamentally separate from it. He sat in the lotus position on the concrete floor, back straight, hands resting on his knees, perfectly motionless. To a casual observer, he might have been meditating. In reality, he was extending his consciousness through the prison like roots through soil, mapping the structure through vibrations and electromagnetic fields that humans couldn't perceive. 243 heartbeats in Block D, 37 in Block C. The guards changing shifts, their pulses elevated from coffee and stress. The warden in his office, blood pressure too high, arteries narrowing with each passing year. And there, in the East Wing, in what the blueprints called a Special Administrative Unit, the presence he'd sensed on his first night. Another vampire. Adrian focused, narrowing perception to a laser point. The signature was old, maybe 2 centuries powerful, but not alpha class. A soldier, not a king. Someone Sophia had sent to ensure he stayed buried. The door slot scraped open. A tray slid through. More gray slop, a carton of milk, a piece of bread that felt like cardboard. Adrian didn't move. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. Didn't need to. The rats provided enough sustenance to keep him functional, though the hunger was always there, a low drumbeat beneath everything else. Cross. The voice belonged to Officer Chen. You've got a visitor. Adrian's eyes opened. Visitors were impossible. He had no family, no friends, no lawyer. His trial had been a formality, his sentence predetermined by evidence, so airtight it might as well have been wrapped with bow. I don't have visitors, he said quietly. You do now. Get dressed. Hands through the slot. The cuffs clicked around his wrists with practiced efficiency. The door opened, and Chen stood there with 2 other guards, batons ready, expressions wary. Word had spread about what happened in the cafeteria. These men had seen the security footage, watched Adrian move with speed that shouldn't be possible, watched him hold Marcus like a child holding a doll. They were afraid. Good. Fear kept people careful. The visitation room was a long space divided by plexiglass barriers, phones on either side for communication. Adrian was led to booth 7 and told to sit. The cuffs were chained to a steel loop bolted to the table. He could have broken free in seconds, but he sat compliantly waiting. The door on the visitor's side opened. A woman entered. She was perhaps 30, with auburn hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a gray pantsuit that looked expensive. Her skin had the pale quality of someone who avoided sunlight, and her eyes, gray-green, like the ocean before a storm, held an intelligence that was immediately recognizable. Not human. Not anymore. She picked up the phone. After a moment, Adrian did the same. Hello, Adrian. Her voice was smooth, cultured, with a faint accent that marked her as European. My name is Dr. Catherine Morrow. I'm with the Department of Corrections Psychiatric Evaluation Team. No, you're not, Adrian said flatly. A slight smile touched her lips, sharp as ever. They warned me you'd see through the cover story. Who sent you? Sophia? The Countess sends her regards. She wants you to know that your accommodations have been carefully arranged. You'll find Iron Gate quite secure. Adrian leaned back, the chains rattling softly. I assume you're my jailer, then. The watcher to ensure I don't leave my cage. Watcher, yes. Jailer? Catherine tilted her head. That implies you're capable of leaving. Are you, Adrian? After 3 days without proper feeding, after suppressing your nature so completely? You're strong, but even an alpha has limits. The truth of it settled like lead in his chest. He was weakening. Not dramatically. He could probably maintain for months more, but the edge was dulling. The speed, the strength, the heightened senses, all of it required energy, and he was running on fumes. Why didn't you just kill me? Adrian asked. A stake through the heart, while I slept, silver in the bloodstream. Why the charade? Catherine's expression shifted, something almost like sympathy crossing her features. Because killing you creates a power vacuum. You have loyalists, Adrian. Old ones who remember when you were more than just a king, when you were the law that kept our kind from descending into chaos. If you die mysteriously, they'll ask questions. They'll investigate. They might discover Sophia's involvement. So instead, I rot in a human prison, convicted of human crimes, forgotten by both worlds. Exactly. She set down the phone for a moment, picked up a folder, opened it. Through the plexiglass, Adrian could see documents, photographs, his own face in some of them. The evidence against you was impressive. 3 bodies, drained of blood, left in an alley in Philadelphia. Security footage showing your face. DNA evidence. Witnesses. All fabricated, of course. But the humans don't know that. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Sophia's work? She's always been thorough. I'll give her that. Catherine's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I didn't want this assignment. I have no quarrel with you, Adrian. I'm here because I was ordered to be here. Then you're a slave. I'm a survivor. There's a difference. She leaned closer to the glass. Listen to me carefully. I'm going to offer you something that Sophia doesn't know about. Call it professional courtesy between old ones. Adrian opened his eyes, studying her with renewed interest. Every 3 months, the prison contracts with an outside medical service to do blood work on the inmates. Routine checks for HIV, hepatitis, that sort of thing. The next one is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. She paused meaningfully. There are ways to ensure that some of that blood doesn't make it to the lab. Small amounts. Enough to keep you functional. Why would you help me? Catherine was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant. Because 400 years ago, when I was newly turned and hunted by witch hunters across France, you gave me sanctuary. You taught me control. You didn't have to. You gained nothing from it. But you did it anyway. She met his eyes. I don't forget my debts, Adrian. Even if I can't free you, I can keep you alive. The words hung between them, weighted with implications. If Adrian accepted, he'd be admitting weakness, accepting charity from someone sent to guard him. But pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not here. Not now. I accept, he said quietly. Thank you. Catherine nodded, then glanced at her watch. Our time is almost up. One more thing. Be careful with Marcus Calloway. He's not going to forget what happened. Men like him can't afford to. He'll come at you again, and next time he'll be prepared. I can handle Marcus. Can you? Without revealing more of what you are, without forcing me to report your true nature to my superiors. Her expression hardened. Stay under the radar, Adrian. Feed on the blood I provide. Keep your head down, and maybe, just maybe, you'll survive long enough for political winds to change. She stood, preparing to leave. But Adrian spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. The presence I feel in the East Wing. That's you? Catherine froze, her back to him. When she turned, her expression was carefully neutral. Yes. And if Sophia decides I'm more trouble alive than dead, then I follow orders. She picked up her briefcase, her movements precise and controlled. Try not to give her a reason, Adrian, for both our sakes. She left without another word. Adrian sat alone in the booth, the phone still in his hand, listening to the dial tone. After a moment, a guard came to collect him, and he was led back to solitary through corridors that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Back in his cell, Adrian lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. Catherine's offer was both a lifeline and a trap. Blood meant strength, but it also meant dependence. It meant staying here, playing by their rules, accepting his exile. But what choice did he have? The alternative was slow starvation, followed by torpor, the death-like sleep that overtook vampires who went too long without feeding. In torpor, he'd be completely vulnerable. They could move him anywhere, do anything to him. He'd wake up decades from now, if he woke up at all, in a world he didn't recognize. No, he'd accept Catherine's help. He'd bide his time. He'd wait, and when the opportunity came, and it always came eventually, he'd remind Sophia why you never caged a king. The lights flickered above him. In the darkness between pulses, Adrian smiled. Patience was something he'd learned over 4 centuries. He had time. The next morning, Adrian was released from solitary and returned to general population. The moment he stepped into Block D, the atmosphere changed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Men turned to watch him walk past, their expressions ranging from fear to awe to naked hostility. Marcus Calloway stood at his usual spot on the second tier, flanked by his crew. His right hand was wrapped in bandages. Adrian had cracked 3 metacarpals without even trying. The gang leader's eyes tracked Adrian's movement with the focus of a predator studying a rival. But he didn't approach. Not yet. Adrian returned to his cell and found it exactly as he'd left it, except for one addition. On his thin pillow sat a small object wrapped in toilet paper. He unwrapped it carefully. A chess piece. A black king, carved from soap with surprising skill. There was no note, no explanation. But the message was clear. Someone in Block D was watching him. Someone who understood symbolism. Someone who recognized what Adrian was, or at least sensed that he was something more than he appeared. Adrian held the Soap King in his palm, feeling its weight, its crude craftsmanship. Then he set it on the small shelf bolted to his wall, where it would be visible from the corridor. An acknowledgement, an acceptance of the game. That night, during rec hour, an old man approached Adrian's table in the common area. He was perhaps 70, with skin like worn leather and eyes that had seen too much. His prison ID said his name was Samuel Wright, but everyone called him Prophet. "Mind if I sit?" Prophet asked, his voice gravelly from decades of cigarettes. Adrian gestured to the empty chair. Around them, other inmates gave them space, sensing something significant was happening. Prophet sat slowly, his joints creaking. For a long moment, he just studied Adrian with those ancient eyes. "I've been in this place 38 years, Prophet said finally. "I've seen men come and go, seen kings rise and fall, seen things that would make most people question their sanity." He leaned forward slightly. "But I ain't never seen anything like you. I'm just another prisoner," Adrian said neutrally. "Bullshit." The word was flat, matter-of-fact. "You moved in that cafeteria like physics was optional. You caught Marcus's punch like you were catching a thrown ball. You didn't break a sweat, didn't breathe hard, didn't show an ounce of effort." Prophet's eyes narrowed. "Were you—" Adrian considered several responses: denial, deflection, intimidation. But something in the old man's face stopped him. This wasn't fear talking. This was curiosity, recognition. "What do you think I am?" Adrian asked instead. Prophet was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands folded on the table. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My grandmother was from Haiti. She told me stories, old stories, older than this country. Stories about beings that walked between worlds. Creatures that looked human but weren't. Things that fed on life itself." He met Adrian's eyes. She called them different names. Lugeru, Succulent, a Sambasam. "Vampire," Adrian said softly. "The word you're looking for is vampire." Prophet didn't flinch, didn't gasp. He just nodded slowly, as if Adrian had confirmed something he'd already known. "You gonna hurt anybody here?" Prophet asked. "Any of the men?" "Not if they don't try to hurt me first." "Fair enough." Prophet stood, his joints creaking again. "Word of advice, then. Marcus ain't done with you. He's talking to the Aryans, the Mexicans, even some of the guards. He's building a coalition. Whatever you did to him, he took it personal. I spared his life. That's why he took it personal. Prophet turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and son, that chess piece? That was from me. Figured if we got a king in here, might as well acknowledge it proper. He walked away before Adrian could respond, melting back into the general population like smoke. Adrian sat alone, processing the conversation. Prophet knew, or at least suspected strongly enough that it amounted to the same thing. But he wasn't afraid. He wasn't hostile. He was respectful. It was a complication Adrian hadn't anticipated. Around him, the prison hummed with its nightly rhythm, voices echoing off concrete, metal doors clanging, the shuffle of feet and the crackle of guard radios. 200 souls trapped in a box, creating their own ecosystem of violence and survival. And now, they knew a predator walked among them. The question was, would they try to kill it, or would they learn to coexist with it? Adrian looked at the soaked chess piece on his shelf, catching the harsh light from the corridor. A king in exile, carved by the hands of a man who'd seen too much and understood just enough. He smiled faintly in the darkness. Perhaps this prison wouldn't be quite as simple as he'd thought. Marcus Calloway's hand still throbbed 3 days after the incident. The prison doctor had wrapped it, given him ibuprofen, and told him nothing was broken. But Marcus knew better. He'd felt the bones grind together under Cross's grip, felt the strength in those pale fingers that shouldn't exist in any human body, which meant Cross wasn't human. Or if he was on something that made PCP look like aspirin. The question was, what to do about it? Marcus sat in his cell after lights out, the darkness broken only by moonlight filtering through the high window. Around him, Block D settled into its nighttime rhythm. Snoring, whispered conversations, the occasional scream from someone's nightmare. He'd built his kingdom here through calculated violence and strategic alliances. He wasn't going to lose it to some pale, pretty boy who moved too fast and hit too hard. A shadow appeared at his cell door. Dmitri, barely visible in the gloom. We're ready, the Russian whispered. 8 men, good fighters. We move tomorrow, during yard time. What about the Aryans? Jake says they're in. They want to see what Cross bleeds. Dimitri's scarred face twisted into something approximating a smile. Should we bring weapons? Marcus considered. Weapons meant lockdown if they were caught. But going in empty-handed against Cross felt like suicide. Bring the shivs, he said finally. But keep them hidden until we're sure the guards are looking elsewhere. I want this to look like a fair fight until it's too late for them to intervene. And if Cross does that thing again, the speed thing, then we overwhelm him. 8 on 1. He can't be in 8 places at once. Marcus clenched his bandaged hand, feeling the dull ache. Tomorrow, we show everyone that freaks don't run Block D. We do. Dmitri nodded and melted back into shadows. Marcus lay back on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this prison, Cross was probably awake too, those strange eyes seeing in the dark, that impossible body needing no rest. The thought made Marcus's skin crawl. Tomorrow that ended, one way or another. Adrian felt the shift in the prison's energy the moment he entered the yard for rec hour. The usual segregation patterns had changed. Marcus's crew stood near the weight pile, but they'd been joined by 4 Aryan Brotherhood members. Unusual, since the 2 groups normally maintained a wary distance. Near the basketball court, several Latino inmates watched with obvious interest, not participating but clearly waiting for something. A setup, an ambush. Adrian could have stayed inside, could have feigned illness or requested protective custody. But that would be running, and running meant showing weakness. In a place like this, weakness was death, or worse, endless predation. So he walked into the yard with measured steps, his pale skin already starting to pink in the afternoon sun. It hurt, a constant low burn across his exposed skin, but he'd endured worse. Much worse. He chose a spot near the far fence, away from the main congregations, and began a series of slow, stretching exercises. To casual observers, he looked relaxed, almost meditative. In reality, every sense was extended, tracking the positions of the 12 men who were slowly, casually, moving to surround him. Marcus approached from the front, the others closing the circle from behind and the sides. The guards in the towers noticed, Of course they noticed, but didn't intervene immediately. This was the dance of prison politics. As long as no weapons appeared and no one died, they let the inmates sort out their own hierarchies. "Cross," Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "You and me got unfinished business." Adrian straightened slowly, turned to face him. The circle was complete now. 12 men, all hardened fighters, all armed with improvised weapons hidden in their clothes. He could smell the metal, could hear the faint rasp of sharpened edges against fabric. "I have no business with you, Marcus," Adrian said quietly. "I told you before. I want to serve my time in peace." "Yeah? Well, peace ain't on the menu today." Marcus pulled out his shiv, a new one, longer than the first, with a handle wrapped in electrical tape. Around the circle, the others revealed their weapons. Sharpened metal, broken glass molded into handles, even a filed-down toothbrush with a razor blade embedded in the end. The yard went silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. "Last chance," Adrian said, his voice carrying that strange harmonic quality that made men's hindbrains scream danger. "Walk away." "I'm done walking." Marcus gestured to his crew. "Take him." They came at him from all sides. Adrian moved. The first attacker, one of the Aryans, a big man named Kurt with swastika tattoos on his neck, swung a shiv at Adrian's ribs. Adrian pivoted, the blade passing inches from his body, and struck with the heel of his palm. The blow caught Kurt in the solar plexus with precisely calculated force, enough to drop him, not enough to kill. Kurt collapsed, gasping for air. 2 more came from the left. Adrian ducked under the first swing, swept the legs of the second attacker, then drove an elbow into the first one's kidney. Both men went down hard, but 12 was too many. Even with supernatural speed and strength, Adrian couldn't be everywhere at once. A blade caught his shoulder, slicing through his prison uniform and into flesh. Another slashed across his back. The wounds hurt. Silver hurt, iron hurt, but steel just stung like nettle. They'd heal in hours. But the blood, the smell of it hit the air, and Adrian felt something inside him shift. The hunger, always present, always controlled, suddenly roared to life like a caged beast catching the scent of prey. No, not here. Not now. He pushed it down with an effort, a will, that left him momentarily vulnerable. A fist caught him in the jaw, snapping his head to the side. Another blow hit his ribs. They were getting braver now, sensing that he could be hurt, that he wasn't invincible. Marcus came in from behind, going for the kill strike, the blade aimed at the base of Adrian's skull. Adrian spun, caught Marcus's wrist, and twisted. The shiv clattered to the ground. He could have broken Marcus's arm, could have snapped his neck, could have torn out his throat, and drunk until the screaming stopped. Instead, he simply held him, their faces inches apart. "I'm trying," Adrian said through gritted teeth, his accent thickening with the effort of control. "To be merciful. Don't make me regret it." Marcus stared into Adrian's eyes and finally, truly saw what looked back. Not anger, not rage. Hunger. Ancient, bottomless, patient hunger. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered. "What the fuck are you?" The guards were moving now, whistles blowing, boots pounding across the concrete. Adrian released Marcus, stepped back, raised his hands. The fight ended as suddenly as it had begun. The attackers scattered, weapons disappeared, everyone assuming positions of innocence. But the damage was done. Not to Adrian's body. The wounds were already closing, the blood already clotting with supernatural speed. The damage was to the careful facade he'd built, the illusion of humanity. Because as the guards cuffed him and dragged him away, every inmate in that yard saw the wounds on his back sealing themselves, saw skin knitting together with speed that defied natural law. They all saw, and in the watchtower overlooking the yard, standing in shadow where inmates couldn't see her, Dr. Catherine Moreau lowered her binoculars with expression of deep concern. Adrian had just made himself impossible to ignore. They threw him in solitary again. Different cell, same concrete box. But this time, there was blood under his fingernails, blood soaked into his clothes, and the hunger was a living thing, demanding to be fed. Adrian sat perfectly still in the center of the cell, hands resting on his knees, and focused everything he had on control. The meditation techniques he'd learned in Tibet 3 centuries ago. The breathing exercises that didn't really help since he didn't need to breathe, but provided psychological anchoring. The mantra that had kept him sane through decades of imprisonment before. Hold, hold, hold. Hours passed. The hunger grew worse. The door slot scraped open. A tray slid through, the usual prison food. Adrian didn't even look at it. What use were vegetables and bread to a creature that fed on life itself? But then a smell hit him. Metallic, rich, unmistakable. Blood. Adrian's eyes snapped open. He approached the tray slowly, every movement controlled. Hidden under the food, wrapped in plastic, was a blood bag, medical grade, fresh, maybe 6 hours old. Catherine, she'd kept her promise. Adrian opened the bag with shaking hands and drank. The blood was cold, dead, nothing like the living heat of prey, but it was sustenance. It was survival. The hunger receded to manageable levels. The shaking in his hand stopped. The world came back into focus. When he finished, he felt almost human again. Almost. The door opened. Catherine stepped inside, alone, which was against protocol. She looked at the empty blood bag, then at Adrian, her expression unreadable. "That was close," she said quietly. "In the yard. Another few seconds, and you would have lost control completely. I know. The footage is already being reviewed. The warden wants answers about your healing speed. The medical staff is confused. Guards are starting to talk." She crossed her arms. "You promised me you'd stay under the radar, Adrian. I was attacked by 12 men with weapons. What did you expect me to do? Not heal in front of 200 witnesses." She took a breath, visibly calming herself. "I managed to fog security footage, made it look like malfunction during the critical moments. And I've spread a rumor that you were on high-grade steroids that accelerate healing. It won't hold up under medical scrutiny, but it buys us time. Us. Yes, us." Catherine sat on the floor across from him, her expensive suit touching concrete without hesitation. "Because if they figure out what you really are, they won't just kill you, Adrian. They'll study you, dissect you, use you to hunt down every vampire in North America. Is that what you want?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" "Make a deal with Marcus. Establish a truce. Show the population that you're not a threat unless provoked." She leaned forward. "Or better yet, make yourself useful. This prison runs on power dynamics and favors. Find a way to fit into that system. You want me to become part of the prison ecosystem. I want you to survive long enough for Sophia's attention to turn elsewhere. Right now, you're a curiosity, a threat. Make yourself into something else, a resource, a neutral party. I don't know, whatever works." She stood. "But you can't keep doing this. The next time you're forced to reveal your nature, I won't be able to cover for you." She left him alone with those words, the door clanging shut with finality. Adrian lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. Catherine was right. He couldn't keep fighting. Couldn't keep proving how different he was. He needed a new strategy. Make himself useful. Become part of the system. The question was, how does a 400-year-old vampire king make himself useful in a modern American prison? The answer came to him slowly, born from centuries of navigating human politics and power structures. He didn't need to fight them. He needed to make them need him. 3 days later, Adrian was released from solitary and returned to general population. But this time, instead of retreating to his cell, he sought out Prophet. The old man was in the library, a small room lined with donated books, staffed by an inmate trustee. Prophet sat at a table, reading a worn copy of Dante's Inferno, his weathered fingers tracing the lines. Adrian sat across from him. "I need advice." Prophet looked up, marked his place, and closed the book. "About survival, integration, how to exist in this place without constantly fighting." The old man studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You finally figured it out. You can't wolf your way through this. You gotta be smart." I'm listening. Prophet leaned back in his chair, his voice dropping to a near whisper. In here, there's three types of power. Physical power, that's Marcus and his crew, the gangs, the fighters. Administrative power, that's the guards and the warden. And then there's knowledge power, information, secrets, understanding. And which do I pursue? The third one. See, Marcus can beat someone down, but he can't solve problems. The guards can lock someone up, but they can't make the prison run smooth. But someone who knows things, someone who can mediate disputes, who understands human nature, who can see solutions others miss. Prophet tapped the table. That person becomes invaluable. Adrian considered this. You're describing a counselor, a mediator. I'm describing a king, Prophet said quietly. A real one. Not someone who rules by force, but someone who rules by being necessary. He leaned forward. You got something these men don't have. Cross. You got time, patience, perspective. Use it. And Marcus? He won't accept a truce without getting something in return. So give him something. Information, maybe. A warning about a guard who's been skimming commissary money. A heads up about a planned shakedown. Make yourself useful to him. And suddenly you're too valuable to kill. Adrian sat with that for a long moment. It was sound advice. More than that, it was the same strategy he'd used centuries ago when navigating the courts of Europe. Become indispensable, and you become untouchable. Thank you, Adrian said finally. Don't thank me yet. This only works if you commit to it. Half measures get people killed in here. Prophet opened his book again. Now get out of here. I got reading to do. Adrian stood, but paused at the door. Why are you helping me? Prophet didn't look up from his book. Because 38 years ago, I killed a man who deserved killing. And I've been in this cage ever since, watching men destroy each other over nothing. Maybe having a real king in here. One who's seen enough history to know that violence ain't the only answer. Maybe that changes things. He turned a page. Or maybe I'm just a crazy old man. Time will tell. Adrian left the library with a plan forming. It would require patience, careful observation, and a willingness to involve himself in the mundane politics of prison life. It went against every instinct he had. The urge to dominate, to assert authority through strength. But Prophet was right. That path only led to constant conflict, to eventual exposure, to destruction. If he wanted to survive, he needed to think like a king, not like a monster. And kings, real kings, ruled through wisdom and necessity, not through fear. The next morning, during breakfast, Adrian approached Marcus's table. The gang leader tensed immediately, his crew moving to intercept. But Adrian held up both hands in a gesture of peace. I want to talk, Adrian said simply. Just talk. Marcus studied him with eyes that still held fear, but also calculation. After a moment, he gestured for his crew to back off. You got 2 minutes. Adrian sat across from him, aware that the entire cafeteria was watching. This would set the tone for everything that followed. I don't want your territory, Adrian said quietly. I don't want your power. I don't want to run this block. He met Marcus's eyes. But I can't keep fighting you every week. It's exhausting, and it draws attention neither of us want. So what do you want? A truce. You leave me alone, I leave you alone. Simple. Marcus laughed. But there was no humor in it. That's it? You think it's that easy? No, which is why I'm offering something in return. Adrian leaned forward slightly. I've been watching, listening, learning how this place works. And I've noticed things. Problems. Opportunities. He paused. Officer Briggs has been stealing from the commissary. Small amounts, but consistent. He'll be caught within 3 months. And when he is, there will be a full audit. Anyone who's been using him to smuggle contraband will be exposed. Marcus's expression shifted. Briggs was one of his main suppliers for tobacco and phone cards. Losing that connection would be a significant blow. How do you know this? I pay attention, and I have time to notice patterns that others miss. Adrian sat back. I can be your early warning system. Information about guards, about rival gangs, about policy changes coming down from administration. In exchange, you stop trying to kill me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his mind clearly working through the implications. Information was currency in prison, sometimes more valuable than drugs or weapons. And what's to stop me from just taking this information and still killing you later? Adrian smiled faintly. Nothing, except that I'll be more useful to you alive. Dead men don't provide intelligence. He stood. Think about it. You know where to find me. He walked away before Marcus could respond, feeling eyes on him from every corner of the cafeteria. It was a gamble, a calculated risk. If Marcus accepted, Adrian would have bought himself breathing room. If Marcus rejected it, the conflict would escalate until one of them was dead or transferred. But Adrian hadn't survived for centuries by playing it safe. Later that night, as Adrian lay in his cell listening to the prison settle into darkness, he heard footsteps approaching. Prophet appeared at his bars, a shadow among shadows. Heard you made a play at breakfast. Bold. Necessary, Adrian replied. Marcus is thinking about it. Word is he's asking around, trying to verify what you said about Briggs. Prophet's teeth flashed white in the darkness. He'll find out you're right. Question is, will he admit you're useful, or will his pride get in the way? Which do you think? I think Marcus got where he is by being smart, not just strong. He'll take the deal. Prophet turned to leave, then paused. You know what you just did? You stopped being a prisoner and started being a player. That's dangerous. Cross. Players get noticed. I was already noticed. Now I'm just trying to control how. Prophet's laughter echoed down the corridor as he walked away. Adrian closed his eyes and let his senses expand through the prison. 243 heartbeats. Each one a story, a life, a thread in the web of this place. He could feel the tensions, the alliances, the hidden currents of power. And somewhere in the East Wing, Catherine's presence, watchful and waiting. He'd made his move. Now he'd see if it was enough. In the darkness, Adrian smiled. For the first time since his imprisonment, he felt like he was playing a game he understood. The truce held for 3 weeks. Marcus never formally accepted Adrian's offer, but he stopped trying to kill him. And in return, Adrian provided information, warnings about cell searches, tips about informants, predictions about guard rotations. Within 2 weeks, Adrian became indispensable. The library became his unofficial office where inmates brought their problems, debts, conflicts, legal questions. He listened with ancient patience and provided advice that was eerily accurate. Some attributed it to intelligence. Others suspected connections. Prophet knew the truth. Adrian saw humans like a chess master sees pawns, predictable, governed by patterns. But visibility brought complications. 3 weeks later, Adrian was summoned to Warden Holloway's office. You've been here 5 weeks, she said, steel gray eyes studying him. 2 altercations, 8 days in solitary, and somehow you're the most talked about prisoner in Block D. She leaned forward. What are you, Cross? Adrian kept his expression neutral. I'm a prisoner serving a life sentence. Nothing more. Bullshit. I've run prisons 24 years. You're off, Cross. Way off. She stood, walked to the window. But since you started, assaults are down 30%. Suicide attempts are down. Racial tensions have cooled. She turned. So I'm making you a deal. I'm creating a new position, inmate counselor. Official. You'll have a desk in the library. Report to me weekly. In exchange, I don't dig into what you are. Your secret stays secret. It was a trap disguised as opportunity. Accept and become institutionalized. Refuse and face investigation. Do we have a deal, Cross? Adrian considered for 3 seconds. Yes, Warden. That night, Catherine appeared at a cell like smoke solidifying. That was clever, she said quietly. You played it perfectly. How long? Adrian asked. How long must I stay here? Something like pity crossed her features. Years, Adrian. Maybe decades. Sophia's consolidated power eliminated your loyalists. Going back means civil war. So I rot. You survive. That's more than most exiled kings get. She reached through the bars. I know it's not the life you wanted, but it's life. Adrian pulled back, anger flashing. You speak as if this is acceptable. Your exile keeps the peace. Cities don't burn. Humans don't die by thousands. Her voice dropped. I hate what Sophia did, but I understand why. You're my jailer. You just dress it up as mercy. Catherine flinched. Yes, I am, and I hate myself for it, but not enough to disobey. She stepped back. I'm sorry, Adrian. She disappeared, leaving Adrian with clarity instead of rage. If he couldn't escape, he'd make this prison his kingdom. He'd build something new here. Patience, strategy, the long game. Monday morning, Adrian's first client arrived. A young Hispanic man with scared eyes and bruises. I heard you help people. I got a problem. The story spilled out. Debt to the Latin kings, pressure to smuggle drugs, threats against family. Adrian listened, then spoke. Their leader is Carlos Mendoza, cell 247. He has 3 weaknesses. His mother in Houston, his connection to Guard Rodriguez, and a rival named Santos in Block C. The young man stared. How do you know all that? I pay attention. By week's end, Adrian had counseled 17 inmates. Word spread. The pale man in the library saw problems from impossible angles. 6 weeks later, Marcus approached. You know what you've done? The gang leader asked. You've made yourself essential. Guards ask your advice. Gangs run decisions past you. Even the warden listens. He leaned forward. You become what I used to be, the real power in Block D, without throwing a single punch. I'm just trying to survive. Bullshit. You're building something. Marcus's eyes narrowed. What do you really want? Freedom within these walls. Control over my own fate. Adrian met his eyes. Same as you. Marcus nodded. That first day, I saw something in your eyes that scared me. I still don't know what you are, Cross, but you're the closest thing to a real king I've ever met. 3 months after arrival, during his weekly report, Warden Holloway studied Adrian. You're too good at this. It's like you can see inside people. She paused. How? Experience, Warden. I've met a lot of people. Patterns repeat. 400 years of observing humanity gave him advantages no degree could match. That evening, Prophet found Adrian by his cell. 3 months since you stopped fighting and started thinking. You happy or just surviving? Adrian considered. He was imprisoned, exiled, feeding on cold blood, but he was also needed, respected, building something. I'm alive. That's more than I expected. Prophet nodded. Just remember, kings who forget they're in a cage do something stupid, and stupid gets you killed. Night fell. Adrian lay on his bunk, feeling the heartbeats of 243 souls. His kingdom. He wasn't waiting for rescue anymore. Wasn't planning escape. He was adapting, evolving, a king without a crown, an immortal learning to exist in the moment. Perhaps exile wasn't punishment, but opportunity. Perhaps this concrete cage was exactly where he needed to be.